Hello and welcome to Tween Bake Off. I'm sorry, sweet whoopie pies. All right, so with everything, we always start off with what you are provided. You have your 3 cups of sugar. You have your tablespoon of vanilla extract, 6 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 cups of unsweetened cocoa powder, the wonderful thing. Yours may be a store brand or a Hershey brand. They got mixed together. This container is exactly as much as you need, so you don't need to really worry about it. You can just crack it open and we're gonna just pour it on in when it's time. You have a teaspoon of baking powder. You have 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 different things, and a teaspoon of salt. Now, this is all just for the sandwich part of our whoopie pies. We're gonna go over what you are provided and what you will need for the filling later in the video, because that's when we're gonna address the filling. Right now, we're really just worried about the sandwich part. Let's get that done, then we'll worry about the filling. So, for the sandwich part, you are going to need a cup of butter, which is 2 sticks of butter, 4 eggs, 1/2 cup of vegetable oil, and 3 cups of milk. Now, I just have regular whole milk, which is totally fine. Whatever you guys have for milk, that's also fine. If you have lactate or soy milk, also totally fine. Because we have to add the milk very sparingly, I'm not gonna measure it out beforehand. I'm gonna wait and measure it out a little bit at a time while we're mixing everything together. All right, so in addition to that, for equipment, you're gonna want 3 different large bowls, a large spoon of some kind to scoop out the filling, or the sandwich stuff with. Baking sheets or cookie sheets is fine. A mixer and or hand mixer. And what is a baker's best friend? It is non-stick aluminum foil. I cannot recommend it enough. I literally use it for everything. It is the bee's knees. And potentially you will need a spatula. All right, so that being said, let's get started on step 1, which is very simple, but very important. Go preheat your oven to 350 degrees. It is always just simpler to go preheat your oven before you start doing stuff, so that way by the time you're ready to throw it in the oven, it's hot. All right, so let's set up and go. All right, for step 2, we're gonna need our big bowl. If you have a bigger bowl and a slightly smaller bowl, I highly recommend using the bigger bowl for the wets, because in this recipe, we're adding the dry to the wet. So when all is said and done, this is gonna be the bowl that's gonna have the most amount of stuff in it. So we start. You are going to beat together the sugar, the butter, and the eggs until well combined. Now, my personal philosophy is always add the eggs to the bowl first. That way, if you have shell crack off, it doesn't blend into anything and it's much easier to get it out. So I'm gonna start by cracking my eggs, all 4. Now, when cracking an egg, don't do it on the side of the bowl. You know what happens when we crack an egg on the side of the bowl? We shove all of the eggshell into the egg, because we've given it a surface to shove it off of. So what we do is we tap it on a flat surface, 1 good tap, and then drop it in. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So again, egg, flat surface, 1 good tap, pop, and in. No shell, no nothing. All right. And I've covered this in other videos before, but for those of you who don't know, the little white stuff that comes with an egg is actually supposed to be there. It's totally fine. It's totally edible. You won't even notice that it's in the cake. It's actually there to hold the yolk into the center of the egg. So it's totally normal and you don't have to worry about it at all. Not creepy, not weird. I used to think it was weird when I was a kid. I was like, what's this string doing in here? It's not string. All right. Also, 10 out of 10, recommend you get some paper towels or a cloth towel next to you to wipe off spills and your hands. Okay, so now we have our eggs. Totally great, wonderful things. I am gonna next put in my butter because yes, you don't have to soften it, and honestly, it's good that you don't because we're gonna want that cold butter. But it also makes it really difficult to actually blend and, you know, soften up enough to whip it. So I like to throw in my butter next so it can sit in the eggs, and the eggs can help grasp onto all the fat content in the butter. Because eggs have two different things. One that is hydrophobic, which means it's scared of water, but it loves fat. And one that is scared of fat and loves water. Which is why eggs are an absolutely wonderful thing called an emulsifier, which brings together things like fats and oils and water, which normally don't like each other. They tend to separate and be like, no, I don't want to play with you. Eggs bring them together. So, putting in my 3 cups of sugar, and then we're gonna whip this with our mixer until it is well blended, which means that you should not have big fat chunks of butter or big old streaks of egg. You're looking for a nice, light yellow consistency, almost like a buttercream consistency. All right, so we have all of our ingredients in our bowl. Now, either you're gonna work with your hand mixer or you're gonna work with your stand mixer. Either way, it is going to be loud, and I will show you what the process is. I will show you what we're looking for when this is done. Okay, so once our stuff is well blended, you're gonna look at something like this. There's still gonna be chunks of butter in there. Butter, it takes a while to break down. But as long as it's a fairly consistent consistency, which means it's pretty much all the same all over, we are going to move on, and we are going to add the oil and the vanilla, and then we're going to beat it again. So, half a cup of vegetable oil. Just pour that right on in. Beautiful. And a tablespoon of vanilla. Now you have 2 different kinds of vanilla. You have a bigger amount of vanilla and a smaller amount of vanilla. You're going to want the sandwich vanilla, which should be coming to you in a bag with all of your other sandwich specific stuff. So make sure you use the tablespoon of vanilla, not the small amount of vanilla. That's for the filling. So tablespoon of vanilla. Beautiful. Just gonna pour the rest of it in there anyway. I like vanilla. So there we go. Got our vanilla in, and that is lovely. All right, so oil and vanilla are in. Back again we go with the beating. And again, you're gonna wanna make sure that it's a very nice consistency. Everything looks the same. You're looking for a much smoother consistency now. All right. All right, when they are all well combined, you're looking for something that looks about the color of mashed bananas. And that is great. That's exactly what we're looking for. So we're gonna put the wet to the side. And now, in our other bowl, we're going to combine all of our dry ingredients, okay? So, that is your 6 cups of flour, your unsweetened cocoa powder, your baking powder, your baking soda, and your salt. Okay, so we're gonna put all of that in one bowl. We're gonna stir it all together just to make sure that it's all combined. And then we're gonna take half of it and put it into our liquids, into our egg mixture. So when you're emptying your dry goods, you have 6 cups of flour. Remember, we just open it, pull it open, and put it right in. This is exactly as much as you need. Now, If you do not have the Hershey specific one, you will have 2 containers, and those, both of them, will go in. Those were only unfortunately sold in 8 ounces, not 16 ounces. So we are looking for 16 ounces of cocoa powder, which is 2 cups. So right on in. Just gonna mix that around. Whole thing smells like chocolate right now. Best recipe I've had so far. So one of the questions that I had when I was a kid was, why do we add salt to sweet food? Because salt naturally isn't sweet. It's in fact a very savory flavor. And what I found out is that salt not only adds to the flavor and enhances the flavor of our baked good, it is also a wonderful combination of salty and sweet. They are 2 things that go very well together. I am almost certain most of you have heard of something called salted caramel. And if you ever want to know, caramel is basically just carefully burned sugar, and it's delicious. And then you would add like sea salt to it to help enhance the sweetness, but also make it not overpowering to your palate. So that is why we add salt into sweet food. Okay, so when it's all mixed together, you're looking for something like that as the end result. You just want to make sure that you get it all mixed together so that everything gets a fair chance, rather than clumping things together. So we're just looking for a nice, even mixture. Okay, so now we're going to take our wet mixture back towards us, and we are going to add half of the dry mixture to our egg mixture, and then we're going to beat. So I am doing this by scooping it, because sometimes when you flop it down, it can pour out more than you actually intended to. So if you want to, you are more than welcome to use a spoon and just kind of eyeball half of the dry mixture. I am going to say that is probably pretty solidly half of our dry good. So now we have dry goods on top of wet goods. Dry goods, when we put the mixer to them and turn it on right away, tend to go and billow up. So before I turn my mixer on, when I have dry goods on top of wet, I tend to go in and stir just a little bit to try and get some of the wet into the dry, so it doesn't poof up like crazy when I turn it on. All right, and we are going to beat to blend this. And if it starts to get too heavy a mixture for your mixer, you are more than welcome to grab a bowl or grab a spoon or a spatula and try and just hand mix it in. Sometimes doing it by hand is the only way to get it done. All right, so it's gonna look very thick, almost like brownie batter, but less liquidy. So we're gonna add 1.5 cups of milk. Hello, William. So we're gonna start with 1. And then we're gonna add 1/2 cup to that. This is why I didn't pre-measure it, because you do it in increments sometimes. So then we have our 1/2 cup. All right, that's beautiful. This looks like chocolate frosting right now. Delicious. So we are going to add the remaining dry mixture, and then we are going to add the remaining 1.5 cups, and we're going to beat until it's blended. So with the dry mixture, I would highly recommend just getting a spoon or spatula of some kind, because this is going to turn like cement almost really quickly, because a lot of dry stuff means that it soaks up all of that moisture. So I'm going to add mine. See, told you we were going to need that big bowl. And then I'm just going to go in and under and start folding in my dry mixture, which just means basically scraping around the edge of the bowl and flipping it, and then cutting through the middle and flipping it, and just working the dry goods in that way. So that way you don't kill your mixer. All right, so I just added my second 1.5 cups of milk. And I don't know about you, but my goodness, this is hard to stir sometimes. So I recommend, but it is not by any means necessary. If you have a strong enough mixer, you go right on and power through. Fantastic and great for you. I do not. So I ended up having to put on a glove and mixing it by hand, because it got to the consistency of fudge, and that became too much for my mixer to handle. So once you add your excuse me, once you add your second 1.5 cups of milk, you're going to stir/beat until it is well blended, and then we're going to line our cookie sheets and start getting this into the oven. All right, so now that we have our tin foil applied to our baking sheets, you're gonna want a spoon. I'm gonna use a tablespoon and a slightly smaller tablespoon to do this, because this batter is very sticky. Now, it says that you are supposed to get 36 circles out of this. I don't know. I'm gonna do my best to get as many as I can, but I'm probably going to end up with about 12 on each sheet, which is about 4 scoops across and 3 scoops downward. Now, some people, if you want to get really, really fancy with it and make sure that you have perfect little circles, you can always grab a glove and form your batter. Or you can also take parchment paper, and on the back side of it, you can draw with a compass 36 perfect little circles that you can sit your dough inside of. Because that's really what this is. It's more of a dough than it is a batter. It's a lot. All right, so I have mine scooped out. And we are going to go pop them into the oven for 10 to 12 minutes. And then we're going to let them cool. So we're going to take a hot break. And I will see you guys when all of my batches are done and we are ready to make our icing and put it on our whoopie pies. So our cakes have come out of the oven. My first batch, not gonna lie, it definitely is a homemade special. Something I found over the process of doing this is if you put your batter into a gallon-sized bag and then cut a hole in the bottom, you can use it like a piping bag. Now, because this batter is super duper thick, I did have to use a pair of scissors to snip it off after it reached a certain size. Then I put on a plastic glove and patted down the tops, and they look significantly better. They actually look like little round cakes instead of, you know, this. It is definitely homemade, but we have a nice firm bottom and completely cool. So let's make some frosting. You are going to, oh, well, let's start with what you are provided then. 1.5 cups of shortening, such as like Crisco or Great Value or what have you. Shortening is just vegetable shortening. It is a vegetable version of something called lard, which was very popular for a very long time, and that was made from the fat of animals. Oh, can you say hello, William? Have 3 cups of powdered sugar, a dash of salt, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and what you will need is you will need 1/3 to 1/2 cup of milk. That depends on how smooth and how liquidy you want your frosting to be. You are also going to need 1 1/3 cups of marshmallow topping. Now, without saying a brand of some kind, because we don't want to have to worry about that, marshmallow topping is delicious and can be found very easily at your local store in the baking section. So, it's very simple to make the frosting. We're going to put everything into the bowl. I already started with my marshmallow topping because that is very, very sticky and can be kind of difficult to get out. So I started with that in my bowl. And then we're going to add our powdered sugar, our shortening, our dash of salt, and our vanilla. And the only thing that we're leaving out is the milk, because that we add after. So let's get started. We're gonna add our shortening. It really is quite pretty, I'm not gonna lie. It looks really just kind of like a brick of white frosting. All right, and we just throw that right in. And you guys have it in a bag and measured out for you, whereas I have bricks of shortening. It's very soft. This is going to smooth out in no time. All right, I have 3 cups of powdered sugar in here, so I'm just going to pour mine in. You guys have yours in your bag. Now, again, powdered sugar is a very, very powdery substance. And as we know, when you stir, well, not stir, but when you beat a powdery substance, we know what happens. It goes woof. So remember, try and stir it a little bit into the rest of your stuff so that it doesn't just become a cloud of powdered sugar. I mean, it'll be a very sweet cloud, but it will still be a cloud. Right, a dash of salt. So a dash of salt is really kind of subjective. Usually it's just a little bit like that. Just plop it in. And again, salt enhances flavor and also helps limit how sweet this is going to be, which is very, very sweet. All right, so we've got our topping, we've got our shortening, our sugar. Oh, almost forgot the vanilla extract. We need 1 teaspoon of a vanilla extract. All right, I've got my teaspoon here. I've got my extract. Now, generally speaking, you could technically use any kind of flavored extract. Vanilla is the most common in baking because it's vanilla. Everybody likes vanilla. It's very basic. It doesn't overpower. You don't have to worry about it getting too much. But technically, you could flavor this with whatever you want. Like you could go with orange, like a very popular flavor of chocolate oranges. You could go for a peppermint flavor if you wanted to get a little bit holiday flavors in there. Honestly, it's up to you. Be creative, and once you get the handle of the recipe, mess around. make it your own. Have fun. That's the best part of baking. And no matter what, you're probably going to be able to eat it. Unless you mess up too much. Sometimes we have to throw things away. That's okay. So, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And in. Beautiful. Love that smell. Love it. Okay. And then we are going to beat this. And we just want to add enough milk to achieve a creamy consistency. So we're going to beat this together, and then we're going to add a little bit of milk at a time. So again, I've got my beater, got my stuff. I'm going to come in, and I'm going to push down, and I'm going to try and break this up a little bit and get this powdered sugar mixed into all the other stuff that's in here. All right. Low and slow is the first time. We're going to add a little bit of milk just because this is getting very hard to beat. And what we really need to do is we need to get it to loosen up a little bit. So I'm just going to add a splash of milk. That's it, a splash. So I added in about half of my milk because it's the first time, and I'm going to guess that about half my milk is probably enough to start looking at that creamy consistency, because right now we have a very, very thick consistency. I'm gonna add just a splash more of my milk. This is a pretty creamy consistency, and you want a fairly sturdy icing when you're making a sandwich out of it. But at the same time, definitely, I'm gonna add a little, just a little. See, I've got plenty of milk left. Just a little bit more to see if I can get it to smooth out even more. Oh, that is beautiful. That's exactly what we're looking for. So, now we're gonna take our spatula. Personally, I try to use always an angled spatula when icing. It genuinely does make a difference. And we're going to take one of our cookies, or cakes, and we're going to dip it in, smooth as butter. You're going to ice it right down, and then you're going to pop another one on top and eat. That is actually quite good. The frosting is delicious. All right. Excuse me. All right. Have fun. Enjoy baking, because that is the biggest part that we love to do, is to enjoy baking. And I will see you